I'm out there playing, I'm connecting with people, and I'm making money that can go towards my next record, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like, wow, great. And so I started focusing more on it, and I was like, I was actually making time to do more busking.
Hey, Mark,
Hey,
how's it going?
good. How's it going, Adam?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, this is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about everything coming up for you.
Great, great.
Sweet. Yeah, so first off, let's talk to you about where were you born and raised?
So I was born in England, um, little place called Amersham, which is kind of just out of London. Um, and my family was there. Both my parents are English, but we were only there for about 6 months before we left the UK,
Uh-huh.
and then we traveled to Singapore. We spent about 3 years in Singapore, um, and then followed my dad's work to Australia and grew up since then in Sydney.
Wow, that's super fascinating. One of my best friends growing up, his parents and him, or his parents and his older brother were born and raised in the UK, and then moved to Singapore, and that's where my buddy was born. But then they moved to the United States.
Yeah, wow. Okay. There
Yeah,
you
but
go.
it's just interesting. Yeah, they're both from the UK and then to Singapore. They must have been doing some work, obviously, with
Yeah.
businesses in Singapore back then.
I think there's quite a reasonable sort of expat community there, and a fair few people travel over there for work. So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
that was what my dad did.
Okay. And then so you got to Sydney when you were like 4 or so, sounds like?
Yeah, I think roughly
Okay.
that kind of age, 3, 4. Yeah.
Yeah, so most of your life in Singapore was the I mean, in not Singapore, in Sydney. What was it like growing up there?
Growing up in Sydney,
Mhm.
good man. Yeah, it's nice. I have really fond memories of growing up. You know, Australia's I think a really nice place to live and a nice place to grow up as a kid, you know. It's
Mhm.
um it's beautiful weather mostly. And yeah, you know, I had a really nice childhood.
Awesome. And what about music? Do you come from a musical household at all or creative household?
Not really. I mean, my parents, you know, are music appreciators, I guess like most people. And but you know, neither of them are musicians. I just sort of picked it up fairly randomly, I guess. I played a little bit of piano and cello when I was really young.
Mhm.
Um, but then it wasn't until after I finished high school that I picked up the guitar and started to write songs and kind of really gel with that, and it kind of took my life in a completely different direction.
Sure. Wow. Okay, so you started off on cello, and it wasn't until after you had graduated from high school that you really started to try to write songs or started playing guitar?
Yeah, I mean, when I say I played cello and piano, it was like, you know, my parents put me in some lessons, and you know, I played a little bit, and you know, I think I enjoyed it to a degree, but it was like I didn't want to practice, and you know, it wasn't long before I wasn't really doing it anymore, you know.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so it was a long break between then and then coming to the guitar, and then it was like this kind of moment of wow, you know, I really love this.
When did or like what drew you to the guitar? Like what drew you to wanting to, write music or play music?
It was just like a good friend of mine and a flatmate at the time played a little bit of guitar, and
Mhm.
he would just sort of muck around at you know at home, and he taught me a little bit, a few chords and things like that, and it's sort of from there it was just like a progression, and I just sort of fell in love with it, and just sort of kept doing it. Um,
And were you writing your own songs fairly quickly, or were you just learning cover songs or
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both, but I did find that it felt quite natural to create my own melodies and sort of try and marry lyrics with that. So I was writing songs pretty quickly. Um, I'm not sure if they were any good, but yeah, it was. Yeah, I just really loved the process, and it felt like I don't know, it was very therapeutic for me. It was sort
Mhm.
of like a way to get these emotions out, an outlet, and just a lot like just felt good, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of how it started. Um, and I mean, it wasn't. I didn't sort of start doing that and think I'm going to be a musician or I'm going to try and do this professionally. It was just something I love to do.
Yeah.
And then gradually, I just didn't stop doing it, I guess. I didn't want to, I found it very difficult to sing in front of people. I was incredibly sort of reticent, nervous to do that. Um, that was kind of completely separate from the songwriting side. The songwriting side was great. I could do that on my own and I loved it. Um, but the idea of kind of performing a song in front of someone was like, oh, I'm not going to do that, you know?
Yeah, terrifying, I bet.
Yeah,
Was
yeah, totally. Well, it was for me.
Yeah, and, like, was there a moment or something that kinda just pushed you to be like, "Alright, I'm whatever, I'm just gonna try to play, like, a coffee shop or something, or play in front of people." Like, would you play in front of your friends?
Yeah, I mean, I think possibly the first people I played in front of were my parents because I
Okay.
knew that they would be a pretty soft,
Pretty
appreciative
gentle.
audience. You know, even if
Yeah.
it was absolute dog shit, you know, oh, it was wonderful, wonderful.
Right.
Um, so I think they were probably and I think I mustered up the courage to maybe play in front of my friends as well. But it took a little while. And for a long time I was kind of like, look, I'm just doing this for me. And then perhaps maybe I could write these songs and and pitch them to someone else to sing, which was kind of this idea that I had in my head for a while. But then after a while I realized that, if I wanted anyone to hear these songs, then I was going to have to probably sing them myself.
Yeah.
Um,
Were
and
you doing
so,
something
yeah,
completely different? Like, it sounds like, I mean, after high school, you didn't that's when you started picking up guitar. Were you in a totally different path, and then this kinda just
yeah,
took
yeah,
over?
completely, completely. I went to university and I did an arts degree and a commerce degree.
Mhm.
So I was playing guitar and writing stuff. I was studying in there. Um, and then at the end of my degree, you know, I started taking on different jobs. Um, and I think in the back of my mind, I was like, geez, I really love this music side of my life.
Mhm.
Um, and I would love to kind of allow that to grow. Um, but there was the reality of life and money and things like that. So I started, working as well. But I never found myself in a job where I was like, this is kind of where I want to be, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I was always kind of allowing the possibility for me to spend more time playing music.
And did you
Um,
did you get some sort of like, when did that kinda shift? Like, was there, like, a song or a moment or, like, a person comes in your life or some validation that kinda swinged it to where you're like, "Oh, wow, like, this can actually be, something like that I'm really good at this, and I should really start to pursue this versus everything else that you're doing."
yeah, I mean, I think there wasn't maybe one moment, but it was like a bit of a slow kind of realization that I could do this.
Mhm.
Um, and performing obviously initially performing in front of my friends and family, and they were all very kind to me. But then I started playing some open mic nights and things like that. Um, and luckily I guess that all went pretty well and it was pretty well received and I felt really good about it, so that gave me the confidence to kind of keep going. um and then I started lots of gigs. I played lots like pub gigs all over the place, lots of all different corners of Sydney,
Mhm.
and just started to try better, um, and get used to the performance side of things. And then after, quite a while of doing that, I started to get some better shows and some better gigs, and I started to sort of sell tickets to my own shows and develop a bit of a following.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it was kind of all that stuff coming
Yeah,
together.
yeah, just kind of, yeah, it was like organic kind of build. It sounds like.
Yeah, totally.
And you put out your first EP in 2006. Is that what I saw?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you do that. I mean, the first, like, one of the songs on the record on at Spotify has millions of plays. And the other ones are all doing well as well. But I think '06 there wasn't even Spotify around yet. Like, were
No.
those songs doing really well, just amongst people in town, or you just put it out? Were you selling it as like a CD out of your car? Like, how did that first record come about?
Yeah, like that was like the very first thing that I ever did.
Hmm.
And I just did it as a way to kind of have something, that was still while I was doing like all these kind of little pub gigs where no one is really listening to what you're doing. You're kind of there just for atmosphere and backgroundy kind of stuff. And sometimes people will pay attention, but mostly not. Um, so yeah, but that CD was just like I wanted to have something there that people could take away with them if they engage with the music.
Hmm.
Um, so that was kind of the purpose of it. It wasn't like anything more than that. It was kind of like my first attempt at kind of recording something and putting something out there.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I just sort of I had that and took it around to all these shows, and people. I did get a nice reaction to that CD.
Hmm.
Um, and there's still people that come to my shows um, that found me having listened to that CD.
Oh,
But I
wow.
think that
That's cool.
CD also, yeah, um, that CD also I had when I started busking, which I got quite a lot of albums out there through playing on the streets.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So
Um,
when did you start busking? Was it around that same time? I mean, you were just wanting to play all the time, and that just happened to be a way to do so.
yeah, I think it was a little bit like a few years after that, I started busking because I started playing like more of my own shows,
Hmm.
and I would start doing like more sort of, I guess, tours, and rather than doing the gigs every weekend or throughout the week at the pubs, I would start playing my own shows, and I kind of had to start spreading those shows out so that you're not sort of oversaturating your audience with too many shows.
Right. Right.
Um, which was cool, but like I found it frustrating as well because I was like, I want to be playing more.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I started asking really out of frustration. Or not, I mean, not frustration, just a sort of desire to be out there kind of doing more stuff.
Yeah, I
Um,
can imagine that's difficult. Obviously, like, when you're first starting out, you want to play and get in front of as many people as possible. But if you start doing your own shows and then somebody's like, "Oh, Mark's playing this weekend," and then it's like, "Oh, well, he's also playing on Wednesday too." So, like, like, I'm sure it just spreads. It could spread thin where you're not getting as many people, at one place at one time, or they, people might forget, like, oh yeah, well, I can just see him in 2 weeks. It doesn't matter. Like, I can imagine that being hard
yeah,
to kind of
absolutely.
manage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can't sort of jump on a plane every weekend and go and play somewhere different either because it's just too expensive.
Yeah, and
Um,
Australia is
so
a beast to tour, from what I can, what I've heard. Obviously, it's not like there's like handful of major cities, and they're not like you're driving 10 hours, right? 12 hours.
Yeah, I mean they're long drives, or it's a flight, you know.
Yeah, a flight, and
Um,
that's costing you more money, I'm sure.
yeah, exactly. And I mean it's not. It's like there's places in between, but it's not like the US where there's so many spots you can hit along the way.
Hmm.
With Australia, it's kind of like there's some smaller satellite towns and cities, but it's predominantly the main cities, which are quite spread out across the country.
Right. Yeah, so you kinda have to the busking thing, I'm sure, was huge for you because then you're playing all the time, and maybe you can make a little money if, people are walking up and checking you out.
Yeah, I mean, it became a big deal for me. I never expected it to, but I uh, I discovered that in the right kind of conditions, it was like really a really great way to connect with people,
Uh-huh.
um, and it was quite lucrative as well. So like it kind of ticked a few boxes for me. It was like I'm out there playing, I'm connecting with people, and I'm making money that can go towards my next record.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow, great. And so I started focusing more on it. And I was like, I was actually making time to do more busking.
Mhm. And how do you make the
Um,
connection to Nashville? Because like, I'm in Nashville now, but I did see, like, you this new EPs was produced here in Nashville, and you have, like, a live thing on Spotify, Live from the Basement. Was that in Nashville here? The basement in Nashville?
no, there's actually
Oh,
there's a base for the basement in Sydney as well. Actually, it's changed
oh.
names now,
Okay, I didn't wouldn't
but
I
it's
was
quite
saw
a
that
it,
you were doing stuff in Nashville, and I just made an assumption like, "Oh, maybe he, did that here too."
yeah. I mean, that would have been cool, but no, I mean it's quite a renowned venue in Sydney.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and I guess there's probably like quite a lot of basements around the
Yeah, yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I bet
Um,
100%. I only
so
assumed just because of the Nashville connection with this upcoming EP.
yeah, no, totally, totally. But yeah, no, that particular album wasn't done there. But
Okay.
but I did record the latest EP in Nashville.
Okay. Was that, like, had you been coming to the States and
Yeah,
performing before, but, like, have you done any tours of the States, or were you doing tours of the States early on?
yeah. I started traveling over to the States a little bit, and I had a little bit of kind of radio support over there on Sirius XM,
Oh,
which
that's
was
huge.
which was really really cool. And I guess also just through the busking that I've done here in Australia, because it like the place that I do it the most or have done it the most is a very touristy kind of area. So I find that people that have followed me are not just Australian people; they're people from all over the world. Have come and visit Sydney, and then have
Yeah,
taken the music back to wherever they live. And the US is one of the biggest spots, I guess, for tourists coming over to Australia. So I had sort of fans sort of scattered around as well that um, I was trying to reach. So I started doing shows over in the US. Um, and then yeah, more recently started working with Network Music,
mhm.
who have a lot of people working out in Nashville as well. So it was kind of like a cool um, and quite a natural sort of idea to come and do this record in Nashville.
That's amazing. And how did you get connected with Network? Is this the first, project you put out with them, or you're gonna put
It'll
out
be
with
the
them?
second, yeah, it'll be the second one. But I think it was just they came across my music um, online, and then we just started having a conversation.
Okay.
And I really love a lot of the artists that they work with, and I love the kind of ethos that they've created, and just really cool people. So it was yeah, it's been a really really great relationship.
That's amazing. So tell me about coming out here and working on this new project. When do you start it?
It was we started recording November last year.
Okay.
Was it?
So about a year
Um,
ago. I can't believe we're going into
yeah,
December, man. This is crazy. It's such a
I
fast
know
year, I feel like.
it's mad. Um, Yeah, I suppose it does. That is a while ago now, but I mean, I guess we kind of were working on the songs then, and we're developing them, and and then you go through all the sort of iterations, and then the music was ready. But then I've been releasing singles for the last sort of few months.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think
You've put out a handful of singles from the upcoming release, right?
yeah, I think there's 5 songs out there now, and there's another two coming with the release, which is just in January next year, January
Yeah, that's
12th.
awesome.
Um, so yeah, it was an awesome experience. It was my first time recording in Nashville, and we did the whole thing over like 2.5 weeks, and it was just a really cool, fun time. Um, I've kind of previously done a lot of stuff independently, um, and that can sometimes mean that when you record something, if you don't have all the money you need at the time, then you might take a while to do it, and it can
Right.
be kind of more of a spread out process. But this was all done within kind of 2.5 weeks, and I really love that it's got kind of like an energy about it, and it's not like hopefully not overthought, and yeah, just was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine it being difficult, right, independently, especially when you're really trying to get it off the ground and having to pay for studio time recording stuff and then just wanting it to be really, really good all the time, and then having to kind of pile up songs where when you go in with at this time, was this the first time you've had a chance to just go in and be like, "Okay, I'm gonna knock this whole thing out in 2 weeks?"
I think so. I mean, I have tried to do that in the past, but it's definitely taken longer.
Okay.
So yeah, I think this is the kind of the most succinct recording period, and that was cool. I mean, we did planning and everything like that, and there was a lot of sort of back and forth after we finished, but the bulk of it was done in that 2.5 weeks, and um, yeah, it was, as I said, it was a great way to do it, I think, and I think I'd try and do that all the time if I
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
can.
Have you done most of your recording in Sydney or in Australia?
Yeah, pretty much all of it actually.
Oh.
Um, so yeah, first time doing something overseas.
What was that
Um,
like? Was it a lot different working here in Nashville versus prior?
I think Nashville's kind of different to anywhere that I've been in terms of like it's so music centric. Um,
Mhm.
and there's just so many brilliant musicians there. You're kind of in the norm if you are a musician. Whereas,
Right, yeah, it is bizarre,
everywhere else
huh?
you're not.
Yeah.
Um, but so it's super cool, like there's just so many great players that you can come and have perform on your record if you want to, and so many beautiful studios and just a wealth of kind of talent and knowledge. So I was lucky to be able to come over and kind of utilize some of that.
Mhm.
And working with Owen Lewis was the producer, and he's a great guy, and a very very talented individual. So yeah, it was cool, and so it was definitely different in that respect. I mean, there's a lot of talent people that I've worked with over here too, but um, yeah, Nashville's kind of its own beast, I guess.
Yeah. Were you able to, like, implement any, instruments or things that you hadn't been able to in the past? I mean, maybe just have it just due to, like, accessibility here in town, like, "Oh, we can get blah, blah, blah to play the blah, blah, blah on the album."
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely like some of the sounds are a little different to things that I've done in the past, and that's probably due to like Owen's influence mostly. I'd say, like he was his kind of vision and sort of suggestions for like what could work. Um, so that's super cool.
Mhm.
I love that side of it too.
And, like, with the album, like, what I mean, with the EP, is what would you say, like, the over like, is there, like, kind of a I'm sure there's a through line to it. Like, what's the kind of the concept behind the EP in its, you know, in itself?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's about a few different things, but probably overarching kind of theme of like trying to balance like confidence with uncertainty.
Mhm.
And that's sort of where a lot of I find myself in that state quite a lot, as a songwriter and as an artist. Sometimes I feel like, I got things sorted. And then other times I'm like, I got no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that there's that kind of running through the whole thing. And there's also like I guess I touch on time a lot, which is like a sort of favorite topic of mine to write about. So it's probably like time, um, trust, as in trying to trust yourself, and love and passion is always in there as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, the uncertainty and just, like, for me, I feel like I get that all the time. It's almost like that imposter syndrome or, like, "Am I really good at what I'm doing?" And then, like, other times I'm like, "Oh, like, I can do this, blah, blah, blah," but then it's like, I don't know, I always question myself a lot of the times, I've heard that from other creative people in that same, vein where it's like, "This is weird that people care about whatever it means."
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm like that a lot, and I think you said imposter syndrome. I've sort of struggled with that feeling. I think my entire career playing music because, I don't know whether it would have been the same no matter how I started, but particularly given that it kind of came out of nowhere, sort of, and not having like a musical background growing up, I've sort of felt like I've joined this party that perhaps I'm not invited to.
Yeah. I mean, not that there's so many people that start not at 5, but it's just one of the it is an
Yeah,
interesting thing, like, where it's for me, you're putting something out there and it's doing something for other people and in a way where you're like, well, like, I don't know. For me, it's like, it's hard to put value to that, but there is obviously value to what you do and it affects other people and everyone else. But for me, it's like, yeah, it's like, I don't know, I just get that imposter syndrome. It's not like you I don't know how to explain it, but
yeah,
it's an
no,
interesting feeling to have.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, definitely.
are you doing, you're playing some shows along with the release, I saw, I think? Yeah, or you're doing some Christmas shows coming up in the next week or
Yeah,
so.
that's right. Yeah, I have some Christmas shows which I do every year in Sydney.
Oh, cool.
Um and yeah, but I will be doing a tour to support the album. I just haven't put the dates out yet, but I'll be doing a bunch of dates in Australia first through April and May,
Uh-huh.
and then yeah, we haven't finalized the dates overseas, but I should be pushing on to Europe and hopefully America as well.
Oh, that's incredible. That's really exciting. With this Christmas show you do every year, do you play Christmas songs, or is it, just your catalog?
Nah,
Just you're
nah,
just
just
doing a thing for Christmas?
yeah, maybe something might be thrown in there, or maybe just a Christmas hat or something. But it's just
Okay, but it's
it's
not
mostly like
Christmas
it's
focused.
no, 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 it's not like a Michael Bublé Christmas or something.
Okay. That's
I
what I
mean,
was
some
wondering.
people would like that, but yeah, that's not what I do.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Mark, for doing this, man.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me, Adam.
Yeah. I have one more quick question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, advice. Look, I think work hard, have try and have fun, and try and trust yourself, which is one thing that I've found with myself. It's like back yourself, and you know don't be afraid to screw things up from time to time because it's going to happen, and sometimes that's a good thing.
Bringing it backward.